Hey, what's up guys? It's Rick with the Digital Divide, and today I want to do a review of the MSI Claw, specifically the A1M model. Now, this released early last year in 2024, and it was a huge mess when it released. The drivers weren't ready, the firmware was a mess, it didn't get great reviews, but over the course of the last year, they have massively improved this thing. They've put out a ton of software updates, driver improvements, firmware updates, and they are claiming that the performance has been improved by up to 43.5% in some games. Now, the unit I picked up comes with an Intel Core 7 Ultra CPU. This is the 155H model. It is a 16-core processor. It also comes with 16 gigabytes of DDR5 RAM. The model I picked up comes with a 512 gigabyte M.2 NVMe SSD. It is a 2230 model, which is the little tiny one that comes in the Steam Deck as well. It also has an 8-core Intel Arc GPU, and this is one of the best things about this is that it has a 53 watt-hour battery, which is a humongous battery. I think it's bigger than what comes in the Steam Deck and the original ROG Ally, although it is smaller than the new Xbox ROG Ally. This also has HD haptics, similar to what you'd see in like a DualSense controller. The screen is a 7-inch, 120Hz IPS panel. It supports VRR. If I'm not mistaken, I think the VRR window for this starts at about 48 frames per second, which means that when you're playing games, you don't need to target 60 FPS. You only need to target 48 and above, and it will be a super smooth, silky experience thanks to that VRR screen. Now, MSI is saying that they custom built this thing to be one of the most comfortable handheld gaming PCs to hold in the hand. That's why it's called the Claw, the way that you hold it. They've molded the back grip so that it's like really, really comfortable. This also has both Hall effect analog sticks and Hall effect triggers. It also has one of the best cooling solutions I've ever seen in one of these portable handheld PCs. This thing also has a built-in gyro sensor for motion controls. If you've ever played Tears of the Kingdom or Breath of the Wild on the Switch, then you know how great those motion controls are for aiming. Now, one of the reasons that this thing did not fly off the shelves is because it was too expensive. It launched at a price of $750, and at the time, I mean, you could get a Steam Deck for almost half that price. And the performance on this thing is not like massively better than that. So a lot of people just skipped it and said, oh, I'll just stick with my Steam Deck. But that's changed as well. So if we hop over to Best Buy, you can see that you can pick one of these up now for a little over $500. They dropped the price and they call it a sale, but it's kind of just stayed there. More often than not, you can find these for around $500 brand new. But if you go to the second-hand market, you can get them for even cheaper. This is the one I picked up. It's like almost brand new in the box, and I got it for $350. Which means that on the used market, you can literally get 3 of these for the cost of one Lenovo Legion Go 2 or one Xbox ROG Ally X, for example. So are you getting triple the performance? Is it worth that much money, or should you just stick to a cheaper alternative? Well, that's what we're going to take a look at today. So I just want to touch on the internal SSD. It is replaceable, but it's kind of a pain to get to. It's behind the right fan underneath the cooling assembly. There's a YouTube channel called Barely Average Dude where he kind of goes over the entire process and outlines how annoying it is to get to, because it involves taking off the battery, taking off the entire heatsink assembly, which exposes the thermal paste underneath the APU. But you can see here that on the right, you have access to swap out the SSD, and on the left, you even have access to, if you needed to repair or replace the internal Wi-Fi/Bluetooth antenna. Now, if you don't want to do all that, you can just buy an SD card. I picked up this 1 terabyte SanDisk card. Make sure that it says A2 on the card so that it can handle the constant read and write requirements demanded by modern video games. Otherwise, you're going to have a ton of stuttering. Now, the only thing you're going to notice with a micro SD card is that your loading times are going to be like slightly longer, but that's really it. There's a YouTube video called Santiago where he tests a bunch of very demanding games installed directly to a micro SD card on his Steam Deck. Here are some of those results.
Robocop Rogue City will be the first one. We arrive to the main menu. You can see the time up there. Continue, yeah, sure. Okay, that didn't actually take that long. So at least on this game in particular. Yeah, doesn't seem to be a problem. It's one of the first UE5 games that came to market, but still. It loaded way faster than I expected. Yeah, it didn't take particularly long actually. I was expecting way worse. This game I don't think it's a big deal. So let's jump into the next one. Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, yeah. Okay, main menu. We hit load game. Let's go to the latest save. Okay, there we go. So the ground took a little bit to load, but the game itself loaded at an okay speed. Again, if you come from my era that we were on slow hard drives. Okay, so now for a stress test on streaming assets in Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. We're going full throttle with the Chocobo through the open world. Let's see if something takes a bit to load. And there will be a lot of pop-in. That's what happens on low settings, but it's necessary to maintain 30s. So the pop-in will be a normal thing. That's not microSD card related. So in this game at least, the microSD doesn't seem to be a big limitation so far. Okay, now I put Cyberpunk 2077 on my microSD card. We hit play. Okay, in the middle we get a launcher that you can skip using a command, so probably it will be a shorter wait time to get into the game. Now it allows us to skip, and we'll load my latest save file in Phantom Liberty, so I hit continue. And there we are, we loaded in. I'm locked to 30 FPS to not hurt the CPU that much. I need to do another video on Cyberpunk, it's been a while. But we're mostly CPU limited in this city part. But the game looks pretty good considering it's a Steam Deck. So let's go to, we're all the way here in the DLC city, and we're going to the beginning of the game, the mega building. Okay, it didn't actually take that long. I was expecting a way longer loading screen.
So as you can see, you'll be just fine playing most games off of a micro SD card. There are a few exceptions though. Some games explicitly were designed to take advantage of the fastest SSDs. Games like Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart or Spider-Man 2 really need to be installed on the internal SSD. So for games like that, I would recommend installing on the internal SSD, but for smaller games or less demanding games, you're not gonna have any problems putting those on a micro SD card. So this is what the unit looks like. It looks just like the ROG Ally, the white one. Now there is RGB lighting around both of the sticks that can be turned on or off. You have your standard start and select that you'd see on an Xbox controller, as well as two dedicated MSI buttons that we'll get into a little bit later. But if we look at the top here, these triggers are, they're soft, they're a little mushy, but I like the way they feel. They're not the tactile clicky. Now there's a power button up here that's also a fingerprint scanner. Next to that, we have a micro SD card as well as a Thunderbolt port. And then we have a headphone jack on the right, as well as your volume rocker up and down. Speaking of volume, you have four sets of speakers. You have two front-facing, and then two that kind of shoot behind you. I don't know how to explain it, but they sound amazing. These are the best sounding speakers I have ever heard on one of these little handheld gaming PCs. Now the back is all ventilation. There are two gigantic fans at the top, left and right, that suck air in from the back, and then it sucks it in and shoots it out of the top. So that top is all where the heat shoots out of, so they've positioned that so it's never touching your hand. Now you've also got a set of these back buttons that are programmable. They're designed so that you can press them from any angle. So if you like to rest your fingers naturally on top or below or on the side, you'll easily be able to press these buttons, which is awesome. Now the D-pad is the only piece of this hardware that I really don't like. It's very mushy. It feels like the Xbox 360 D-pad. But it's not the worst one I've ever used. Now, if you're curious, this is what it looks like next to a Nintendo Switch 2. It is wider, as you can see, but it's not that much bigger. It is a lot thicker, though. If we hold these up to the side, you can see it's about twice as thick as the Switch 2. Now, one of the coolest things about this unit is that it supports Wi-Fi 7, and this is one of the only handheld gaming PCs on the market to support Wi-Fi 7, and it is wildly faster than Wi-Fi 6. As you can see here, I was able to download all my games lightning fast. So this is what the unit looks like. You've got your standard start and select from that you'd see on an Xbox controller, and then you have your standard MSI buttons. The one on the right here is your quick settings icon. Now over here you have some options as far as power is concerned. You can dictate how much power this thing can consume. There's like a battery saving mode, balanced, high performance, and then there's the AI engine, and that's the one I leave it on. It will dynamically adjust how much power is available to the system based on what you're running. So more demanding games, it'll give it more power, and in less demanding games, it'll give it less power. So you don't have to constantly go in there and change it on your own. You're always going to get the ideal battery life, and then you have access to all your other game launchers here, Xbox, Steam, all that stuff as well. Now, the button on the left opens up what's called the, I believe it's called the MSI Center. I'm never going to use this, like literally never. It's just a place where you can launch all of your games from one easily accessible environment. There's also down here at the bottom, there are some news and update settings, and then there's some ability here to modify all the lighting. So there's some settings here to change the lighting, and then there's noise cancellation supported on the microphone for this device as well. And then just general battery life and setting information here. Nothing crazy. Now, for those of you that are into synthetic benchmarks, I did run a benchmark using Geekbench 6, and these are the results I got. I'm trying to see if I can focus this, but I got 2,439 on single core performance and 10,535 on multi-core performance. Now, I also ran a benchmark on the GPU. We'll let that run, and I'm going to fast forward here for the sake of time a little bit. But the end result that we got for the GPU was 37,753, which is not too shabby for a handheld that I got for $350. Not bad. Now, if you want to use this as a standard desktop computer and dock it to a keyboard and a monitor, you're going to need a kickstand because unfortunately this doesn't have one. This is the one I bought. It was 16 bucks on Amazon. You can pick these up. They're all over Amazon for very, very cheap. I'm trying to see if I can get a picture, but it's just a little case that will give you some added protection and also has a kickstand on the back. Importantly, though, doesn't cover up any of the back ventilation. All right, now we're going to jump into some game testing. Now, the MSI Claw has a 1080p screen, so I wanted all of the games that I'm going to test to run at 1080p. And I'm also not using any frame generation, so I'm not going to take advantage of any frame generation. This is all going to be real frames, and I'm not going to use any upscaling if I can avoid it, with the exception of one game. Now, let's just jump into the first game. This is Hot Wheels Unleashed 2. I'm running it native 1080p. There is no upscaling. As you can see, FSR is set off. Resolution scale is 100%. All of the settings are on medium, so this is running at 1080p medium settings. So let's go ahead and jump into a track. All of these little handheld gaming PCs have these performance metrics that you can turn on or off. This one is no exception. As you can see on the bottom right-hand side, I have it on now, and we're getting 95 frames per second. Again, we're just in the menu, but you can see how much power it's consuming. This device can consume up to 50 watts of power if it needs it. But let's go ahead and jump in here and see what kind of performance we're getting. Again, this is native 1080p, no upscaling, no frame generation, medium settings. And it looks like we're hovering, we're in the 80s now we're in the 70s. So as you can see, we're well above 60 FPS, and we're well within the range of the VRR window because, again, this screen supports VRR, so it feels so much better and smoother than the frame rate would suggest. As you can see, we're hovering, or we're averaging around 70-ish frames per second, but it feels like 120. Like, it feels so smooth. It's not going to be something that you're going to be able to really get a good grasp on through a YouTube video, but trust me, this is an incredible gaming experience. So now let's move on to the next game. This is Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite. Again, here are the settings. We're running at native 1080p, no upscaling. Everything on this game is set to high, so we're at the highest possible settings, 1080p. Now, on this game, the frame rate counter wasn't working. This is the only game that I tested where I had this issue, so unfortunately, I can't tell you exactly what the frame rate is, but it is silky smooth. I mean, again, this is native 1080p, no upscaling, no frame gen, the maximum settings. To my eye, it looks and feels like 120 frames per second, but let's jump into a different match, and I'll show you the issue I was running into here. But you can see that on the bottom right, it shows everything except for the FPS. Again, this is the only game that I had that issue with. I don't know why, but the game is silky smooth, and I had zero performance issues or stuttering or anything like that. Okay, the next game we're going to take a look at is Cyberpunk 2077. This is a very demanding game to run. I am running at 1080p. This is the only game on this list where I did use upscaling. So I'm using XESS, and it's set to balanced. All of the graphical settings are set to medium. There is no frame generation, that is off, and then ray tracing is also off. So this performance, as you can see, we're hovering between 40 and 30 FPS on average. And again, this is 1080p medium settings. On a Steam Deck, for example, to get this performance, you would be running at between 720 to 800p at low settings. And here we're at 1080p medium settings and getting a little bit better than the Steam Deck typically gets at that lower resolution and lower settings. If, like right now, we're indoors, it's in the, a little above 40 FPS, but that's what you can expect by this game. And again, this screen, I don't know how to explain it, but it feels and looks so much smoother than the frames you're getting would suggest or that you would suspect. Now I'm going to move to a more demanding area here. Let's blow some stuff up. I'm just going to start shooting things, and I'm just to stress this thing out. We'll throw some bombs. You can see even with all this stuff going on, we're still not moving much in the FPS department. It is a very consistent experience. All right, the next game we're going to take a look at is Jurassic World Evolution 2. I'm going to show you my settings here. Basically, I have almost everything on medium settings, and then this is running at 1080p, as you can see here. So we're just going to quickly just move around the map so you can get a general idea of how this game runs. Now, this game is a little bit more difficult to run, and it's not very friendly to Intel hardware, but as you can see, the frame rate is, right now we're getting in the 50s. Typically what I do with this game is I lock it to 30 FPS. The only reason it's unlocked now is to show you that we have a bit of overhead so that we could probably push up some graphical settings. But again, this is at 1080p native, no upscaling, no frame generation, medium settings. And on a Steam Deck, I've tested this exact game on a Steam Deck, and you'd get roughly the same performance, but at low settings and a lower resolution, like typically 800p or 720p. So it's still a really good experience, and every game that I've thrown at this, I haven't had any issues with. So yeah, overall, I would say that I am incredibly happy with this device. I have been playing it nonstop for the last few days, and I absolutely love it. I'm blown away with it. And that's probably because I went in with really low expectations, but I would give it a solid 9 out of 10, especially for the price you can get these at. For $350, specifically what I paid for it, it's the best deal in gaming right now, I think. But let me know what you think in the comments below. As always, thanks for watching.